Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are on chapter number 5, which is entitled Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. And we'll do verses 7 through 12 today. Verse number 7 in Sanskrit. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriyaha sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvan apina lipyate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. What a beautiful verse it is. And we learn so much from the Bhagavad Gita. So this chapter is dealing with actions and reactions. Krishna is teaching us through Arjuna how we should perform our activities in such a way that we do not get entangled, we get liberated. So this verse that we read today is actually a process of liberation. So what are the requirements? The requirements are that one need to work in devotion. We covered quite a few verses last Tuesday where Krishna was explaining how we should work in devotion. And when we work in devotion, then automatically our mind and senses, they start getting purified. And the first step to that is we need to do some meditation. Meditation is what brings about peace. Meditation is what controls the mind and the senses. And in the age that we are living now, there is a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of distress around. So mantra meditation helps us to purify our mind and senses. And another important point is to regulate our lives, discipline life, which means, as it is given in Bhagavad Gita also, one should not eat too much nor eat too little. One should not sleep too much or sleep too little. In other words, lead a disciplined life, because disciplined life helps us to keep ourselves in control. In Ayurveda, there is a proven theory that this Bhagavad Gita is teaching neither eat too much or too little. So in Ayurveda, they give the process of keeping the body healthy. So what is required is whenever it is time for our meals, whether it is breakfast, lunch, snack, or dinner, one should fill the stomach only half with food, only half. Not that we keep eating till we are full till here, that's the way some people, describe their overeating, that, oh, I'm full till here. Ayurveda suggests that we should only fill our stomach half, leave the other half. So a quarter of the remaining half should be to be filled with water. And the remaining quarter portion of the stomach should be left empty for the air circulation. So that's how the digestion takes place. So you see, even in Ayurveda, they teach us regulation, and regulation is necessary. That way we can lead a healthy life and also lead a happy spiritual life. So these are the requirements Krishna is giving in this verse that we read, that if we work in devotion and we purify our mind and senses with this process, then there is going to be no more entanglement. No one likes to be bound up. If someone ties my hands up with a rope and my legs also, it's going to be very uncomfortable because there's nothing I will be able to do. We like to be free. We don't want to be in bondage. We don't want to be entangled. And the reason for bondage is uncontrolled senses. When we work in devotion with the help of knowledge, that is very important. Knowledge is important. When we work in devotion with knowledge, then automatically the purification begins. How come? Because the knowledge guides us. It explains, this knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita explains to us how we should do our karma, our activities. And in that process, gradual purification takes place. And in this verse, Krishna says, such a person, someone who has regulated the life, has regulated the mind and the senses, someone who has purified the mind and the senses, such a person is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to such a person. Why is that so? Because this person is satisfied. Because of regulation in life, this person is satisfied. Mind and senses are controlled. And so in that consciousness, that person does not offend others. Why is it that the others, are sometimes upset, get angry? Because maybe there's something we do or we say that upsets them. But here, when a person is satisfied, then that person doesn't get angry, doesn't insult others, becomes dear to others, and does not offend anyone. So it is just a matter of change of consciousness. We don't need to change our family, our jobs, or our country or house, nothing. All it needs is the change of consciousness. So when our senses and mind are purified, then the consciousness also becomes pure. And then such a person in that pure consciousness sees all living entities as children of the Supreme Lord. Mamai Vamsha Jivaloke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. This is what Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, that all the living entities are my parts. We are the parts of the Supreme Lord. And he says, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Sanatana means eternal. And all living entities are eternal because they are not these bodies, but they are the spirit soul. So it's important to understand this, that we are parts of Krishna, just like there are branches of the tree. Tree is the main, the roots are the main for the tree, and then all others, the branches. So there is the Supreme Lord Krishna, and we are his children like the branches. And what do we do when we want to grow the tree? This is a very crude example, but when we want to grow the tree, we water the roots. When we want to stay healthy, we put the food in the mouth that goes in the stomach, gets digested, and it gives nourishment to the whole body. So when we satisfy the stomach, when we satisfy the roots of the trees, everyone gets satisfied. So when we satisfy Krishna, then everyone else also gets satisfied. So those who are in this consciousness, based on knowledge in this consciousness, Krishna consciousness, they like to serve others. And the best service to mankind is to give this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita to others. With this knowledge, one will be able to understand the real identity, that we are not this body, but we are spirit souls. And then the person will also understand, with the help of knowledge, that this place, this earthly planet, is a place of misery where, there's birth, disease, old age, death. There is misery caused by the material nature, like floods, famine, or whatever, or COVID, So this is a place of misery. But when we take on this knowledge, when we distribute to others, the others become enlightened and they understand the purpose of human form of life. Human form of life is not just to eat, sleep, and be merry. We have that philosophical intelligence, so we can understand the Bhagavad Gita. So someone who is pure in consciousness, that person is very satisfied by the work. Why? Because that person has understood that when we perform our activities in devotion to the Supreme Lord, and we do not desire to enjoy the results of our activities, then consciousness automatically becomes pure. And in that process, mind and senses become controlled and they get fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. So it is good to hear the Bhagavad Gita, it's good to read the Bhagavad Gita. And so that way, when we start following Bhagavad Gita, put it into practice, then there is going to be complete satisfaction. Now, in this Bhagavad Gita, we see that Krishna is speaking the Bhagavad Gita in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He's speaking to Arjuna, and Arjuna did not want to fight, even though that was his prescribed duty. He didn't want to fight, but Krishna explained to him that he needs to do his prescribed duty, but not worry about the results of his activities. In other words, he should not think, oh, am I going to win the war? Am I going to lose the war? Will I be successful, or am I going to die in the war? No, not to think about that. Just do the prescribed duty without desiring for the results. Then there will be no reactions. And when there will be no reactions, that means a person is following Bhagavad Gita. One is following Bhagavad Gita. That is what it is. Let me read the next two verses, 8 and 9. What does Krishna tell Arjuna? A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all. Because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, or opening or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. So one may say, what is all this? In other words, Krishna is giving us knowledge about the qualities of one who is in divine consciousness. So when we hear these qualities, then it's important to contemplate on these qualities and understand, do I have any of these divine qualities? So what is that main thing? That whether one is seeing or hearing or touching or smelling or whatever, sleeping, breathing, whatever one is doing, one understands that oneself is not doing all these things. It is just the senses that are doing all those activities when they come in contact with the sense objects. That means the material senses are engaged with sense objects, but the person is aloof from them. Who is this person Krishna is talking about? The spirit soul. We are the spirit souls. We are not this body. This body is like the covering that we wear, like the clothes that we wear on the body. Similarly, the body is the cloth for the spirit soul. So the soul is inside the body and the body is covering the spirit soul. So one who is not on the bodily platform of life, which means one does not consider the body to be themselves, that person actually understands the real identity, that I am the spirit soul, I'm not this body. So to become pure with this consciousness, we can, when we do that process of purification, that will lead us to permanent happiness and peace, even though we are living in a world where there is a lot of misery. That consciousness will bring one to another level, which is called the transcendental level. And then a person will start performing loving service to Krishna, which means working in devotion. Jivera Swarup Hoy, Krishnera Nityadas. It is said that the constitutional position of the living entity, which is the spirit soul, is actually the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord Krishna. But when a person starts acting on the platform of sense gratification, which means I see, I hear, I touch, everything, all the senses are engaged in enjoying the body, then the self-realization does not take place. And then there is not much satisfaction. We have seen in our day-to-day life, we desire to get something. And when we get that something, we are really happy for some time. But then after some time, that same object does not give us any more happiness. That means that happiness was temporary. Why? Because it was connected to the body. But when we look for happiness that is connected to the spirit soul, which is our true identity, then there's going to be permanent happiness. Then there's going to be full, complete satisfaction. So we understand from this verse that we need to free ourselves from karma. What happens with karma is every action has a reaction. And that is why we either enjoy or we suffer. So we need to become free from karma, even though our senses are still engaged, even though we are still working. But if we just change our consciousness and understand that the work that we are doing is we are doing in devotion for the Supreme Lord, then one will be able to lead a karma-free life. So these are this is the knowledge that Krishna is giving to Arjuna. He first gave the process of liberation, how to liberate oneself, or how to disentangle oneself from the bondage. Then he explained the qualities of someone who is in divine consciousness. And now in this verse that we just read, Krishna is trying to explain how to lead a karma-free life. Let's see what is the next verse talking about, verse number 10. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Most of us, probably all of us, have seen a lotus flower. Sometimes we find the lotus flower in a pond that is not very clean. You know, there might be some trash around, garbage around, or whatever. The water is unclean, but the lotus flower is untouched. We will never find all that dirt on the lotus flower. So why is Krishna giving this analogy? It's to explain to us that when we do our prescribed duty without attachment, I have met many people who get very attached to their work. It's like work, 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 work. They are so passionate about work. There's nothing wrong with that. But then if we get too attached to our work and we don't surrender our results to Krishna, then we get affected by reactions. So here Krishna is giving a formula by which we can, again, he's talking about karma-free life so that we don't have any reactions. So he's explaining to us that how we can do our duty without attachment, surrender the results to Krishna, and then we will be unaffected, just like the lotus flower in the water. The lotus flower never gets wet, even though it's in the water. What is the reason? Because there's a wax covering on the petals of the lotus. So anything that drops on the petal just slides out. It just slides out and goes back into the water, into the pond. So that is how our lives will become. When we do our duty without attachment and do not meditate on how to enjoy the results of our activities, then our lives will get covered up with the knowledge from Bhagavad Gita. Then all these miseries and all will just slide out. We will not really get affected by all this. So this is what we learn, because this material world that we are in is actually running on three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. So one needs to go beyond these three modes and go to the level of pure goodness. That is called Shuddha Sattva Guna. That is pure goodness, where everything that we do is related to Krishna. And because we know everything belongs to the Lord, Nothing. We came empty handed and we have to leave this body empty handed. Nothing belongs to us. It's just that we like to hold on to things. We like to collect possessions and then we hold on to them, get so attached to them as though we are going to take with us after death. But that does not happen. So anyone who understands this knowledge, they automatically start engaging their senses in the service to the Supreme Lord. So there is no karma, there are no sinful reactions. See, the problem with reactions is very simple. In chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, which is also entitled Karma Yoga, we learned every action has a reaction, whether good or bad. So supposing I just do good actions, then the Lord has to bless me with good reactions. If I do bad, then automatically reactions will be bad. But then someone may see, what is wrong in doing good actions? Because it's good to get good reactions. You know, everything will be nice. Person will be very beautiful, very rich, very famous, or whatever it may be, whatever the reaction may be of the good activities. But the problem is that karma works in such a way, it's not that we get the reactions in the same birth. It may be in the next birth, which means if I do good actions, then I will have to take another birth so that good reactions can be reaped by me. Now we have a choice. We need to decide, do I want to lead a life in such a way so that I come back into the cycle of birth and death again and again? Or do I want to break free? I want to liberate myself and go to the spiritual world. So here Krishna is explaining that there is a reaction for every action. Even actually this material body that we've got is a wonderful gift from him. It's a wonderful gift from the Lord. Why? Because he has given us very sharp intelligence along with this human body, so that we can somehow or the other take this knowledge and remove the contamination that may be there in our hearts, and then become like the lotus flower in the water, which is in the water and yet it does not get wet, which means we can still be living in this material world, still with family, still go to work, still, have a house, car, whatever it may be, but be unaffected by any contamination. So a person who is conscious of Krishna also understands that this material world is not our original home. Our original home is the spiritual world, because we are spiritual beings. Right now, we are spiritual beings experiencing human nature. We are experiencing human tendencies and all, but actually the spirit soul is totally spiritual. So it's important to understand that we need to work, but we need to work in devotion and not just dry renunciation that we learned before in the previous verses, where Krishna said, no point in renouncing just like that without knowledge. Oh, I'm fed up of my family, I'm fed up of my job, let me give up everything and go to the mountains and meditate. No, that is not what Krishna is recommending here. Let's see what is there in verse number 11. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. So you see, here we are given process of purification. Yoga, the word yoga is very commonly used, but very few know the actual meaning of yoga. Here Krishna is talking about yoga. He's saying the yogis, that means he's talking about yoga. The people who practice yoga are called yogis. Of course, there are different kinds of yoga, but the meaning of yoga is link, to link with the Supreme Lord. So he's saying that when these yogis, when they perform yoga, it is for the purification of the mind, the senses, and the body. He's not talking about yoga asanas, where we do different asanas, to have a healthy body, which is also good. We need to have a healthy body. But here he's talking about yoga of the mind, where there is purification of the mind, senses, and body based on the knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita. So when we come to that consciousness of Krishna, then automatically our mind, body, and senses start becoming purified. And then such a person is considered to be liberated. And in such a person, there is no false ego. See, there are two types of egos. There is real ego and there is false ego. False ego means one considers oneself to be this body. I am this body. That is false ego. Real ego means one understands I am not this body, but I am a spirit soul, part of the Supreme Lord, spiritual in nature. So such a person in that consciousness starts applying everything in the service of the Lord, dovetails all activities towards the Lord, and then gets connected with Krishna through bhakti yoga. I can give you a very simple example, a practical example, how we can follow that. We all eat every day. Some of us eat once, twice, thrice, some eat 8 times, whatever it may be. But whatever we eat, we need to offer it to the Supreme Lord as an offering, and then that food becomes sanctified, and it is in Sanskrit is called prasadam. When we eat that sanctified food, so we are still doing the same activity of eating, but now we've just changed the consciousness. We have, because plants also have life. So when we offer vegetarian food to Krishna, the sin of using the life of the plants for oneself, that sin is removed, that sinful reaction is removed. So the example of offering vegetarian food and eating sanctified food is another way a person starts performing yoga. Such a person is called a yogi, where the yogi is using the mind, body, intelligence, and senses, everything only for the purpose of purification. So purification is the main word in this verse. Let's do the last verse for today, which is number 12. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. So you see, there is another formula by which one can liberate oneself. So what is important in this verse? Steadily devoted soul. Steadily. So it's not that, if we are wanting to regulate our senses, we do it once a week or once a month. No, steadily. One has to be steadily devoted. Then such a person will attain peace. In fact, in towards the end of this chapter 5, we will also hear the peace formula that Krishna is giving to Arjuna. And he says in this verse, such a peace, that kind of peace is unadulterated. There's no adulteration in that. And that's why it's permanent. It's not temporary peace or happiness. And what is the reason? The reason Krishna is giving in this verse is that one offers the results of all activities to Krishna, all hours, which means, again, it's akarma. Akarma means working in devotion. But he says those who are greedy, who want to enjoy the fruits, they get entangled into the cycle of action, reaction, action, reaction. And then it's very hard to come out of it. One will really need a lot of guidance to come out of it. So now the question may arise that what is the difference between liberated and someone in bondage? The person who is liberated is working in devotion and offering the results to Krishna. Whereas the one who is in bondage or entangled does the opposite, works hard for personal sense gratification and gets attached to the results of those actions, and so then remains in bondage. And if one is in bondage, then definitely there's going to be anxiety. You see, this material world is called kuntha. Kuntha means full of anxieties. But the spiritual world is called Vaikuntha, which means where there are no anxieties at all. So it is up to us. We decide, what do we want to do? Do we want to continue to come back again and again into this material world, which is kuntha, full of anxiety? Or do I want to go to the spiritual world where there is no anxiety? There is only peace and happiness, and it's permanent. You see? And so it's important that we learn to work in devotion. So if so many benefits are there, then why not work in devotion and then depend on the Supreme Lord for the results? Anyway, we are going to get the results based on our past actions. Whatever we are experiencing now at the present moment is just the reactions of our past actions. But whatever actions we start performing now based on the knowledge from the Bhagavad Gita, that is going to decide our future. According to our present actions, we are going to get reactions in the future. So it's beneficial for us that we get attached to Krishna, we start performing activities in devotion and leave the results to the Supreme Lord. And we have seen, Krishna is talking about greedy people. Greed always leads to a fall down, because it is said that one can satisfy a hungry person by giving food. Thirsty person can be satisfied with water or any other drink. An angry person can be satisfied, with sweet, pleasing words. But a greedy person can never be satisfied, never, because greed is such a vice, you can say, that one is never and wants more and more and more, is always wanting more and more. So it's important to understand that we are going to get reactions based on our past activities. So when a person is liberated, there is no anxiety and there is permanent peace. And such a person is actually working in devotion, which is devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And that person automatically goes to the transcendental platform. That person is then not on the material platform. In other words, the person who is following Bhagavad Gita, the process of Bhagavad Gita, then that person may be going to a job, working and, taking care of family, but is doing it on the transcendental level. It's not on the material level. So if we act in that consciousness, then a person will definitely achieve peace and also will become fearless. So this is what Krishna has been describing, giving knowledge to Arjuna from verse 7 through 12. So the first step to working in devotion is mantra meditation. That mantra meditation helps us. It helps us to control our mind and senses. So it's a very simple process, actually, very, very simple process. And all we have to do is try and do some mantra meditation. I can demonstrate to you, the process of this meditation. And what I will do is in the chat, I will, let me see, in the chat, I can post the links, and I can also post the mantra that that I'll be chanting to demonstrate, so that you can do that at home, or you can even, in your spare time or whatever, you can follow this. So there is this mantra which I will try and chant now. I'm trying to put it in the chat now. Okay, this is the mantra. So it's very, very easy, and these are very powerful sound vibrations that when we chant, it goes into the ears, goes straight to the heart, and starts purifying the heart. So I'll just chant just a few times. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you see, it's very, very simple and not at all difficult to follow. So it would be nice if you can try it on a daily basis to see the difference. You will notice the difference yourself. So I'm going to end now and see if anyone has any questions.